We have some questions for Jeremy, please. In time-honoured tradition, we'll wait for the microphone.
Hi, good evening, and thanks. It was great to hear all the work around community and art. Sorry, Joe Francis, Coca-Cola. I'm just really interested, we didn't hear anything about ethical, responsible journalism, phone hacking, that kind of thing, and clearly a big news agenda in the last kind of couple of months. Just really wanted to know where that sits within the kind of the responsible business agenda for you and the team at Sky.
So, I mean, look, it's right at the core of our business agenda, full stop. So how do we, operate Sky News, appropriately, obviously within the letter and the spirit of the law? How do we make sure we've got the right editorial processes that exist around that? And we spend a lot of time and work very hard around making sure they're in place. And that's backed up by, training courses, policies and procedures and all the things that you would expect, and reinforced daily. We also think a lot about our reporting lines, for example, in news, so that they are short and that we have the people at the top of Sky News who run Sky News are very, very close to on the ground activity. By the way, it's not just around things like ethical journalism, phone hacking, and news. If you think about running a big news organisation, it's around things like safety of your employee base. We've daily got people who are working in highly dangerous environments. So how also do we think about all of that and the structures and support that we put around that to make sure that our employees are as safe as they can be. So if you see Alex in Syria reporting with guns going off, there are lots of things that we think about that relate to that as well. So news is it's an important part of our business. A very broad part of our business, and there are lots of things that sit within that in terms of how we operate it and control it that I spend a lot of time on.
OK, can we just take that question there, and then we're going to take 1, 2 at the front, and then we'll move on.
Hi, James Irwin from Acre Resources. We're specialist recruitment consultants in the sustainability space. And the number one bugbear that we hear from professionals is they really struggle to get senior management buy-in, and they'd love to have their chief executive sitting here and they'd love to have him talking about or her talking about long-term visions and long-term goals. Is there one piece of advice you could give to sustainability professionals as to how they could get the buy-in from senior management?
Well, look, I think, first and foremost, I think it has to be led from the top. Right, so I think unless you're at the very top of the organisation, you're not really committed to it, then I guess it'll not really sustain in itself, and I think that's true of most things in the business. I think the second thing is success has many authors, right, and you should encourage that. So, I'm constantly trying to look where we do good things and things work, to have many people, associated and feel part of that success. And I think once you start to create that environment, people can get behind it. I mean, the other things that we do is, we do, technical things, right? We've got a ring-fence capex fund of £10 million every year for green expenditure, right? It's over and above anything else that we spend. It's there as a discrete pot. Whoever comes up with the best ideas, will put that money behind it. Actually, we overspent it last year, which was good. We had more ideas and we could put more money behind it. Business is very smart at understanding how to get things done. So if you can create little points in the business, you'd be surprised how people will get drawn into those things.
Can we take one, and then Emma, your question straight afterwards? Thank you.
My name is Peter Knight from I'm chairman of the Context Group. We're a sustainability consultancy. We work here and in the US. Thank you very much for a really honest, down-to-earth rendition. But could you drill down just a little more into the political reason why you need to do what you're doing in this area? Because really you don't have a choice not to do because of the rather incestuous UK media scene.
I'm not sure I would agree with that, I have to say. Look, I think the reason we have no choice is I think long-term the consumer businesses that will be successful over time, will understand that there is a broader footprint that they operate in, and they need to speak to all of those things, all of the communities that they operate in, whether that's employees, customers, you know, the broader kind of sectors that they operate within. So my motivation is actually not about, you know, the sort of media establishment in the UK, because to be honest with you, you know, we compete against a lot of those guys. I think it's going to be pretty hard for us to really get what we do to resonate very strongly there. It's much more about, you know, what I learned at P&G when I grew up and while I saw a business like that, you know, go from, you know, saying before, selling soap up the Ohio River to, you know, working in every country in the world, right? How did it achieve that? So I think it's much more about a customer motivation. And I think, you know, businesses from time to time, they go through good periods, right? And then they have tougher periods. And, you know, when you go through a tougher period, you know, you want to make sure that people are behind you. And if people can look at us and say Sky is not just good for itself, it's good for the areas that it touches, and it's a responsible business, then I think we're going to have a better chance of navigating some of the things that come our way. So I think that's much more, you know, both the motivation for what we do, but also where the benefit will emerge as well.
Thank you. Emma.
Yes, Emma Howard-Boyd, Jupiter Asset Management and investor in B-Sky B. I'm very glad you made the distinction between perhaps the analyst presentations and when you do go out to speak to investors. But having just gone through the half-year results and looked at the PowerPoint presentation as opposed to any transcript, I do wonder whether there is a role for a different type of communication to the broader investment and analyst community around the long-term agenda, which would feature some of the stuff that you talk about so passionately and eloquently, and in a business, from a business perspective. I wonder if that's something you could think about.
I think that's fair, actually. I think that's a fair point. And just, I would put a distinction between the sort of broader media and analyst community and, you know, the sort of buy-side, sell-side. Because actually, my experience is when you actually talk to shareholders, and we tend to talk more fully in meetings that we have with shareholders, you know, they get it, right, and they support it. You know, if you own 2 or 3% of Sky today, that's a lot of money, right? You know, and you want to make sure that, you know, we're really thinking about the long term. But I think we probably could do more. We should think about that, actually.
But I think, if I may, that distinction between those two communities often doesn't come across from a chief executive who will talk about the frustrations of the financial community just not being interested in this area.
Yeah. We also do, I mean, we do a lot of work with our shareholders, and we're increasingly doing it now with others. Well, we really want to try and open up Sky, you know, open up our site. So we've got in our new studio building, which we built, we designed in, you know, a sort of walkthrough where people could come and tour the business and see what we do. It's interesting to look at, you know, producing television in a sort of digital environment, but actually people can then see, you know, just see Sky at work. We've got a schools program that we've built in there. We're going to get 12,000 school kids through our studios every year, and they come to Sky and they make, you know, television, and they shoot it at Sky, take it back. It's linked to the curriculum, and, you know, then we've got, you know, 12,000 kids, you know, who we know will talk, and they'll go and talk to their parents and their friends, and so we can get that to resonate. So I think really opening yourself up and just saying, come and look at what we do, you know, and see for yourself, it's quite a powerful way to get your message across.
Okay, thank you. We've got one at the back. I'm conscious that I'm taking all the questions from this side, so we'll come over here in a sec. Okay, we just take that one first.
Hi, I'm Madeline from EE. Sorry, I'm going to... my partner's a huge sports fan, so we have Sky Sports News on pretty much most of the time. And unfortunately, I've not seen the really kind of positive disability things, but I do feel like pretty much all the advertisement is for betting. So you've got Sky Bet, you've got Paddy Power. So I know that that's legal in every way, but I just wonder how much your strategy, as well as promoting positive messages, considers the potentially negative things. Because with Sky Bet app now, it's so easy to watch a TV and place a bet, and just wondered how much that's part of your plan as well.
Well, in terms of running Sky Bet, you know, that's a core part of our plan, and again, many things that we talked about, I think, particularly resonant, for Sky Bet, and responsible gambling. And we certainly think of Sky Bet very much at the sort of entertainment end, if you like, of betting. In terms of advertising, we work with, you know, the likes of Clearcast and the ASA. You know, we're not particularly trying to work at an individual advertiser level because I don't think we've got the capability to be able to do so. And then positive messages, you know, I think in areas like news, you know, I think we could probably do more. I think there's the nature of sort of news organisations is they tend to look at, you know, maybe some of the darker things in the world. I was very struck over the summer, you know, as I think everybody was, around the Queen's Jubilee and the Olympics, that actually there were some really great positive stories that we could get behind, and we did very well on the back of those things. So, you know, I'm quite a big fan of that, and us doing more of that.
Okay, thank you. Can we take... Were there more questions? So there's you, so is there any more on this side? Two... Okay, we're going to take 1, 2, 3. If we take them all together,
okay,
and then we'll go from there.
Hi there, Alexandra Hammond from Guy's and St Thomas's NHS. My question's around how you engage staff, and you know, having 23,000 staff. What are the decisions that you've taken to involve them in that process of looking at this? Do you give them a day off a year to volunteer? Do you have a sort of network that they can use to learn about what's going on? How does that work?
Okay, thank you. And here, this lady here at the front. Sorry, we're going to have to run around a little bit, or you're going to have, not we. I'm just sitting here.
Hello, Heather Rankin from Context. You've talked a little bit about the need for leadership from the top and the need to kind of concentrate on longer-term value creation. I wondered whether any element of your remuneration and that of your direct reports is linked to that, meeting your 2020 targets and generating that long-term value creation versus hitting the quarterly returns. And I also wondered why there's no women's Sky Pro cycling team.
Yes, that's a good question.
Thank you. And this gentleman here.
Thanks. Jamal Gore, Carbon Clear. So I wanted to ask a question around green investment and especially sustainability investment. Mm-hmm. So Dyson Airblades, improved set-top boxes that don't break down as much. These things save money for the company. So ultimately a no-brainer. There may be other initiatives that you do because, well, the government requires you to, like the CRC. Can you speak about some activities that Sky is involved in around the environmental or sustainability front that perhaps costs the company money and where the benefit might be measured in some way other than in pounds and pence?
Okay, so we'll take one at a time. I think in terms of staff communication, the answer is I think there's no silver bullet. So we try to do it at multiple levels. So everything from, you know, when I meet with the National Forum, you know, that'll be part of, you know, what I talk about and also what we'll discuss. We've got environmental champions around the business, and we're trying to get to broaden out a lot of what we do in the areas of sports and the arts, and we try and plant those things in the business. So we don't think of it as a sort of central department, if you like. We actually try and seed it in the business and make it part of that particular area. Do a lot. I mean, we're very lucky because obviously we're good at video, so you know we can actually bring it to life. I mean, one of the things I like about the video that we showed at the start is, you know, it's high production quality, it's upbeat, it's, you know, I think it's entertaining. So actually, when you use that, you know, people engage with it. So lots of different things in that way. And then we're trying to, you know, get examples right throughout the business of people who are working in this area, particularly off their own bat, and trying to support them.
Do you give them a day off to volunteer?
I don't give people people get, I don't think they get an automatic day off, but we support volunteering, and we'll if teams want to go away and volunteer, we'll do that. In terms of the second question, which was around,
Heather?
There was two questions. The second bit was
the long-term value creation.
Yeah, say that first question again. Sorry.
I just wondered...
Oh, remuneration. Yeah. So about 25% of my comp is based upon metrics other than sort of hard business metrics, and that's a broad range of things actually. So it's not one individual element, but the business looks at, you know, our broader contribution. We try and mix our compensation up with a mixture of shorter-term customer and financial metrics and longer-term customer and financial metrics. We haven't gone as far as to say there's going to be a sort of hardwired number based around this program, largely because it's difficult to do that actually, and it sits with everything else that we're doing. In terms of the women's pro cycling team, we haven't yet got a women's pro cycling team. I think it's one of the things that we're looking hard at, and actually part of growing women's participation has been a core part of what we've done in cycling. And generally, women's sport is something that we're trying to do more in. We already do a lot, but I think we could go further, definitely.
I have a question about women. Do you think you have enough diversity with your female sports reporters?
So, I mean, one level yes and one level no. So I think, you know, we can do better in terms of ethnic diversity and age diversity on screen, and I think we should improve that, and we're trying to. In terms of our female sports reporters, we've actually got a very diverse group who are all outstanding sports journalists and have got a broad range of interest, and they will tend to focus on certain sports as well as Inspire Sports News largely deliver the sports news service. So we've got some great sports journalists. Not easy to get a lot of female sports journalists. It's one of the harder areas. But look, yeah, listen, I'll put my hands up. You could look at every part of our business, right, and we can get better. There's absolutely no doubt we can get better, and you know, that's what we're seeking to do. We can also get better on the diversity of some of our male sports journalists as well, I think.
Okay, Jamal wanted an example of something that you're doing that actually maybe costs you money.
You know, it's interesting when we think of our budgets. We don't, other than the example I gave you, we don't really sort of pare out budgets and say this much is for the environment and this is for the business. Actually, what we try and do is sort of bring the thinking into what we're doing. So if I look at our broadcast, our new broadcast facility, we spent just over £250 million on putting that together. There's no doubt that costs more by being you know, sustainable and environmentally efficient and all digital versus what we could have done if we'd just simply gone and put 8 studios down and had a new broadcast playout facility. But I couldn't give you the precise number as to what that is. We've got a CCHP plant on site at Ostley, which provides about 40% of the energy usage of that business based on recycled materials, and certainly that is, you know, not cost optimised versus what we could have spent. But I think it's more about how do we actually sort of, again, try and turn it on its head and say as we design things and build things in, as a matter of course, they must be environmentally efficient and sustainable, right? Then tell me what the number is to do that, and let's decide if we're going to do it or not, as opposed to say, how do we almost add the environmental stuff on the top?
Okay, I want to take 2 really quick, pointed questions. Who's got... Oh, very, very definite at the back.
Oh, my.
This is going to be a great, pointed question with a brief answer.
It doesn't have to be, by the way.
You betcha. Martin Wright, Forum for the Future. There's a growing surge of climate scepticism in the media at the moment, including among your colleagues at News International. Is it tougher for you to push climate change as an issue in the way you did very enthusiastically a couple of years ago? Do you find that you're having to fight shy of it a wee bit for fear of pissing off your customers?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think that in terms of customers, certainly we have seen, I think, and I think we're probably seeing corporately a lot of companies respond to it, certainly more the sort of local and social issues emerge in terms of customers' concerns. But actually we see, in terms of the work we're doing in the environment, that it continues to resonate. One of the reasons, actually, when we chose Sky Rainforest Rescue is we wanted to identify a sort of a cause we could work with customers in together, where we would have some form of match funding. If they would make a commitment, we would match that. And I think we had 9 ideas that we tested initially, and it was very interesting that the environment and the rainforest really resonated much stronger than anything else, and that's continued. And actually, we've just, having completed the first programme, we've just extended it for another 4 years, I think. So I'd be interested to see how it develops over the next few years, but at the moment, I think it still resonates very strongly.
I said I wanted 2 questions. I had a great one. We're going to finish on that. Jeremy Darroch, thank you very much. It's a pleasure. Let's round the applause. Thank you.